All right, so get this. We're diving into something pretty huge in the NBA today. Um, the three-point revolution.
Oh, yeah.
It's crazy how this one shot went from like a last-second prayer to the absolute heart of the game. Like, can you even imagine the NBA without it now?
Not really, no.
We've got this excerpt from an article called The Three-Point Revolution in the NBA, how a single shot changed basketball forever. Ready to see how it all went down?
Absolutely. It's
Oh.
a wild story for sure. I mean, you go from a time when three-pointers were like practically frowned upon
Yeah.
to now where they're like a must-have in every team's arsenal.
I know, right? The article takes us all the way back to 1979 when the NBA first adopted the three-point line from the ABA. But get this, teams barely even used it. They averaged less than 5 attempts per game.
Wow.
It was like a novelty act, not a serious weapon.
Yeah, back then it was all about size and strength.
Hmm.
Centers ruled the paint and the pace was so much slower.
Yeah.
The three-pointer just didn't fit the style of play at all.
It's true. But you know, even in those early days, you had guys like Larry Bird and Reggie Miller. They were showing flashes of what the three-pointer could be. But to really understand how this revolution took off, we need to talk about the rise of analytics.
Oh, yeah. Analytics.
That's where things get really interesting.
Absolutely. Analytics revealed this like hidden power of the three-pointer. Even with a lower shooting percentage, the math is simple, right? 3 points is greater than 2. It made it incredibly efficient. Teams like the Houston Rockets, led by Daryl Morey, they were some of the first to really embrace this data-driven approach.
So hold on, how did they actually use analytics to their advantage? Did they just tell everyone to chuck up threes all game long?
Well, not exactly. It was more about identifying and exploiting the most valuable shots. They tracked like every little bit of data and discovered that things like corner threes had a much higher expected value because of the shorter distance and often being wide open.
That makes sense.
Yeah. They also really prioritized shots at the rim, recognizing the high percentage and the potential for drawing fouls. They basically built their whole offensive strategy around generating these like high-value shots, even if it meant passing up what looked like good mid-range looks.
So it wasn't just chucking up threes from anywhere. It was this strategic approach based on maximizing efficiency. That's fascinating.
Exactly. They really went against the grain, and it definitely shook up the league. But even with analytics paving the way, the revolution wouldn't have been the same. Without a certain player who really captured the imagination.
Stephen Curry.
Oh, yeah, Steph Curry, the guy who basically turned the three-pointer into an art form. The article describes his range and accuracy as a weapon of mass destruction, and honestly, I don't disagree.
He completely redefined what was possible. His quick release, his ability to shoot off the dribble from way beyond the arc. It was mesmerizing. And alongside Klay Thompson, they became the Splash Brothers and turned the Golden State Warriors into a dynasty. And their coach, Steve Kerr, he totally embraced this style of play. Ball movement spacing and a whole lot of threes. But it wasn't just about the guards, right? This three-point revolution had a ripple effect on the entire league. It even changed the way big men played.
Oh, absolutely. You know, in the past, centers were these like immovable objects in the paint. But as the three-pointer became more and more important, the role of the big man had to evolve. It was the start of the era of the stretch bigs. Guys like Brook Lopez and Nikola Jokic,
Yeah.
who can shoot from outside and create all these matchup nightmares for defenses.
So these big guys basically had to adapt or become extinct. They couldn't just camp out under the basket anymore.
Exactly. They needed to be able to stretch the floor,
Yeah.
open up space for their teammates, and even initiate offenses from beyond the arc. It completely changed the dynamics of the game.
And just look at the numbers. Teams are launching over 35 three-point attempts per game now, compared to less than 10 back in the 80s. It's a massive shift.
It really is remarkable. And you know what?
Right.
We've only scratched the surface of how this revolution unfolded. What's equally fascinating is how defenses adapted to this barrage of threes. We should dive into that next.
Let's do it.
So yeah, it's amazing how this whole three-point revolution forced defenses to completely rethink their strategies.
Yeah.
It wasn't just about guarding the paint anymore. The whole court became a battleground.
Yeah, for sure. You can't just have your big guys hanging out under the basket if the other team's raining threes from everywhere. So how did defenses adapt to this new reality? The article mentioned something called switching defenses. What exactly does that mean?
Well, switching defenses became super important to combat these spread-out offenses. So imagine this. You've got 5 players on defense, right? And the offense is constantly moving the ball, trying to create mismatches. In the switching defense, defenders guard whoever's in their area, regardless of their position. So you might have a smaller guard end up guarding a larger forward, or a center might find himself out on the perimeter chasing a speedy point guard
Okay, I see. So it's all about versatility and being able to guard multiple positions, no more hiding your slow-footed center in the paint. But wouldn't that create even more mismatches?
It can, definitely.
Yeah.
That's why communication and teamwork become even more crucial in switching defenses. Defenders have to be constantly talking, calling out screens, helping each other out. Coaches had to really drill this into their players because just one little breakdown in communication could lead to a wide-open three-pointer.
It sounds incredibly complex and demanding. So switching defenses were a big part of the solution. What other tactics did teams employ to counter this like three-point explosion?
Hmm. Well, rim protection became even more important than ever. With offenses spreading the floor, it created more driving lanes to the basket. So teams really started prioritizing big men who could block shots and alter shots at the rim, even if they couldn't shoot threes themselves.
That makes sense. You need someone down low to protect the basket, especially when your perimeter defenders are stretched out guarding the three-point line.
Exactly. And speaking of perimeter defenders, they needed a whole new skill set. It wasn't enough to just be strong and physical anymore. They had to be quick, agile, and able to defend players who could shoot from way beyond the arc.
So basically, the rise of the three-pointer created this demand for more versatile and athletic defenders at all positions.
Precisely. The game became faster, more fluid, and it required players to be proficient on both ends of the court. But let's not forget, even with all these defensive adjustments, the three-pointer still fundamentally changed the game. And like with any major change, there were bound to be some criticisms and controversies.
Right. The article mentioned some concerns that the game might be becoming too one-dimensional, too focused on shooting threes. Is there a risk that all the other aspects of basketball, the passing, the dribbling, the post-up spring, will just get lost in this three-point frenzy?
Yeah, I think that's a valid concern. Some people argue that over-reliance on the three-pointer can lead to less creativity and tactical variety. The beauty of basketball really lies in its complexity, in the interplay between all the different skills and strategies. And if it just becomes all about launching threes, you might lose some of that richness.
I see what they mean. It's like anything in life, too much of a good thing can sometimes be a bad thing. And let's be honest, sometimes watching a team chuck up three after three, it can get a little repetitive even if they're going in. I remember that game where the Houston Rockets missed 27 threes in a row. Talk about a three-point nightmare.
Oh yeah, the infamous Game 7 against the Warriors. It was a painful reminder that even the most analytically driven three-point heavy teams can still fall victim to cold streaks. It really highlights the risk of becoming too dependent on one style of play. You need to have multiple options, different ways to attack, and definitely a plan B for when the threes aren't falling.
For sure. So where do we go from here? Is the NBA just destined to become a three-point shooting contest? Or could we see a shift back towards a more balanced style of play? What does the future hold for this three-point revolution?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? There's no crystal ball or anything, but there are some interesting developments and potential scenarios to think about.
So we've seen how this whole three-pointer thing has like totally transformed the NBA from how teams actually play to the skills players need to make it. But what's next? Is this revolution going to keep going? Or have we hit like peak three-point mania?
Well, one idea that's kind of out there is moving the three-point line back. It would make the shots tougher, for sure.
Mhm.
And it might actually encourage teams to use more diverse offensive strategies.
So make those long bombs even longer. Imagine Steph Curry pulling up from like another 5 feet out. Would that just make him even more unstoppable? Or would it force guys to like actually develop other skills?
Well, it could definitely put more emphasis on mid-range shooting, which has become almost a lost art in today's NBA. Maybe we'll see a comeback of the mid-range maestro, players who can consistently hit those tough contested shots from just inside the arc.
That would be pretty cool, like a throwback to the days of Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant, but with a modern twist.
Exactly. It could lead to more creative offensive sets, too, with teams finding ways to create space for those mid-range looks. It wouldn't just be about launching threes anymore. It would be about finding the most efficient shot, whether it's a three, a mid-range jumper, or a layup.
So a more balanced attack using elements of the old and the new, that could make the game even more exciting to watch. But what about the players? How would they adapt to these changes?
Well, we might see even greater specialization. Some players might really focus on becoming like ultra-deep shooters, pushing the limits of range and accuracy even further. Imagine guys routinely pulling up from 35 feet, or even beyond half court.
Whoa, that's kind of crazy to think about. It'd be like watching human catapults launching threes all over the court. But wouldn't that make the game too predictable, just a bunch of guys chucking up super long shots?
Not necessarily. Think about it. If you have a player who can nail shots from that far out, defenses would have to extend their coverage like crazy, leaving more space for cuts, drives, and other offensive plays. It could lead to a whole new style of play.
So it's not just about the shot itself, it's about how it changes the whole flow of the game. That's what makes this revolution so fascinating. It's not just a change in the rules, it's a change in how we think about basketball.
Exactly. And it's not just the NBA either. This whole three-point thing has spread to, like, the entire basketball world. College basketball, international leagues, even youth programs. Everyone's embracing the three-pointer. It's a global phenomenon now.
So who knows what the future holds? Maybe we'll see a 4-point line someday, or some other crazy innovation we haven't even thought of yet. But one thing's for sure. The three-pointer has completely changed basketball. It's forced players to adapt, coaches to come up with new ideas, and fans to watch the game differently.
It really shows how basketball, like any other sport, is constantly changing. What used to be a gimmick is now a fundamental part of the game. And as the game keeps evolving, who knows what other surprises are in store.
Well, that about wraps up our deep dive into the three-point revolution. It's been awesome exploring the history, the impact, and the potential future of this game-changing shot.
Definitely a fascinating discussion. And for everyone listening, keep exploring, keep asking questions, and keep loving this amazing sport.
Absolutely. Keep those hoop streams alive, everyone, and we'll catch you on the next deep dive.